What's going on, guys, and welcome to today's video. And today we're kind of doing something that I haven't done in a really long time here on the channel, and that's a new car review, or maybe just a new car drive. I'm not really a new car reviewer, but I like to bring you guys along if there is some new model or something kind of new and interesting from Jeep Chrysler Dodge. So today we've got a Jeep Grand Cherokee, and yes, it's the current 5th generation Jeep Grand Cherokee that's been out for a good little while now. But this one is kind of interesting because it has a little door up here in the front. Yeah, this one is the 4xe. This is the hybrid plug-in electric Jeep Grand Cherokee. This is the shorter 2-row, not the Grand Cherokee L, just the standard Grand Cherokee. So today I thought we'd do just a quick walk around, and then we'll go out and drive this thing and see how a 4xe Grand Cherokee feels on the road. Because the big thing going on under the hood, or the small thing I guess I should say, is the fact it has a 4-cylinder engine. This is the same 4-cylinder 2-liter turbo that is in the Jeep Wrangler 4xe, and obviously it has the hybrid side of things in the transmission that is adding horsepower, adding torque, and a lot more functionality, I guess, since you can run this in all electric and go from there. So real quick, what are our numbers here? We've got 375 horsepower and 470 foot-pounds of torque combined. Now that is with the electric motor and the gas motor. So honestly, pretty darn respectable numbers out of a 4-cylinder Jeep Grand Cherokee. Now, Jeep only rates this at 25 miles of all electric driving. It was fully charged up and showing on the cluster about 29 miles. So you may be able to get a little bit more than that manufacturer rated mileage depending on your driving style. But when you take into account the fuel tank plus your hybrid battery, you supposedly have a max range of 470 miles. So real quickly, walking around this thing, this is the Summit Reserve 4xe. This is all the stuff you want. This is every single option loaded up, which does bring a pretty healthy price tag. How this one is optioned ends up being $78,980. So this is an $80,000 Jeep Grand Cherokee here, guys. But like I said, you can obviously get them at a much better price point if you are not going after that top tier trim level like this Summit Reserve. They do make these in a Trailhawk version that is honestly really cool looking with its trim and the off-road wheels, tires, etc. Now we'll jump into the back of this thing to start with, just so you guys can kind of see the cargo room here on a 2-row Jeep Grand Cherokee. And it is very spacious back here. If that second row was folded down, you would have a ton of room, and you still do have a full-size spare tire here under the load floor. You aren't losing any weird storage space due to the fact it is a 4xe. Now jumping into the interior here, it is a very interesting color spec here. We've got black and almost a peanut butter brown interior. It does look very nice. The Summit Reserve also has the suede headliner and pillars, which obviously looks very, very nice. Now jumping up here to the driver's seat, you do have massage seating here in the Summit Reserve. And again, this is all very normal 5th gen Grand Cherokee. Nothing really new. This one does have the optionable passenger screen that does show some cool infotainment stuff. And then the really only different thing here on a 4xe is the fact we've got our drive mode selector down here. We've got our hybrid, electric, and e-save buttons. So you can go through the 3 different modes of your 4xe. And those modes work identically to the Wrangler 4xe. When you start it up, it will default into the hybrid mode. It will just use its best judgment to kind of cycle between all electric or the gasoline engine for the best fuel economy. The next mode, electric mode, you can force it to use the electric power side of things, the battery and the electric motor as much as possible. If you do still put your foot in it, bury your foot getting on the highway, and it needs to turn the gas engine on for the additional power, it will still do that. And then the last mode, which I really think is kind of cool on the Wranglers, is the e-save. When you put it in e-save, it's going to do its best to only use the gas engine and use as little of your battery reserve as possible, which in the Wrangler's case is kind of cool. You could drive to your off-road trail in e-save and then put it in electric mode and hopefully kind of crawl around for the day in electric mode. So just kind of a cool thing. On the 4xe Grand Cherokee, I don't know that you'd be using that e-save as much since this is primarily going to be on the road. Now, if you did have a Trailhawk trim, again, I could see that same situation as the Wrangler where you're wanting to save that electric motor for the trail. That would be kind of cool, crawling around off-road without an engine running. So guys, enough, just a quick brief overview, but I really wanted to get this thing out on the road and see how a 2-liter turbo with a plug-in hybrid feels moving a relatively large SUV down the road. So let's get going and see how it moves. But before we go jump on the road, I guess let me show you under the hood. That's kind of the whole point of this video, is the different drivetrain. Again, guys, not an automotive reviewer. So here is the 2-liter turbo with the plug-in hybrid. Not a lot to see. We've got the engine cover here, and the 4-cylinder engine is absolutely shoved under the cowling. The engine doesn't start till about here in the engine bay, so it is more under the cowl than it is in the engine bay. We've got our 3 cooling systems for our engine, for our hybrid system, and for our turbo loop. Now, don't quote me on which one is which, but those are the 3 loops here. And yeah, there's a lot of hoses, a lot of lines on any turbocharged modern day vehicle. There's just a lot going on under the hood of these modern turbo small displacement engines. Okay, so now that I have finally showed you under the hood, let's get on the road and let's go drive this thing. So taking off here in the 4xe Jeep Grand Cherokee, I'm just going to leave it in the hybrid mode. Again, that's the mode that it defaults to when you start the vehicle up. So I'm assuming 99% of the time, most people are just going to get in their vehicle, drive it like normal, and it's going to be in that hybrid mode. Now, there is a selectable additional mode here up on the dash. It's the very left button up on the top. It is the regen button, or in this case, the max regen button. Now, if it were mine, I would be leaving the max regen on. And if you're not familiar with hybrids or electric vehicles, regen is using that electric motor to put some power back into the battery. Now, when you let off the throttle with a higher regen level turned on, or the max regen in this case, you will get a very heavy sensation of the brakes being applied without the brakes being applied. And a lot of people probably won't like that or aren't used to that feeling. So that's why it is often selectable in modern electric or plug-in hybrid vehicles, so you can turn that off if it isn't a nice or good feeling to you. But in my case, again, I would want that on, so I would be getting every extra little ounce of power back into the battery when you are decelerating or coasting or what have you. It also, in the long term, will help save some brakes on the vehicle, since you can often slow down considerably with just the regeneration on. Now, how does it drive here? It drives like a normal 5th gen Grand Cherokee. If you haven't driven one yourself, they're very smooth. The steering's nice. Everything's very, very nice about them. There's no really bad issues or anything like that. They're a very nice driving vehicle. The 4th gen Grand Cherokee drove extremely nice also, and these just improve upon that even more. Now again, we are in the hybrid mode, and I'm going to kind of roll onto the throttle here as I would be accelerating onto the highway. The gasoline engine fired up and the vehicle did take off at a quick pace. Now power-wise, it's really hard to kind of compare back to back. This probably feels more peppy or lively than the 3.6 liter. But I still think that Hemi, regardless of what on paper shows with power and horsepower and torque numbers, I still think that Hemi has that low end grunt, that V8 noise, and maybe that's a lot of it, is just hearing the V8 noise versus a higher buzzy 4-cylinder. But don't get me wrong, it moves very well. It just, that V8 seems to have more grunt down low than this 4xe. But you're definitely not going to be getting the fuel economy of the 4xe in that Hemi option Jeep. So again, I'll roll into the throttle here, accelerating onto the highway. And it absolutely picks up very well. Again, it just doesn't quite feel as low in torquey as a big V8, and it shouldn't. But the cool thing about that 4xe is going to be that all-electric driving. I myself could charge this at night, drive to work, and drive back home, and never use a drop of gasoline, and still have a extremely nice interior and a place to drive, massaging seats turned on over here, and not using $1 of gas. So there is a lot of benefits to that 4xe. And the cool thing about a hybrid or plug-in hybrid is the fact you are not committed to all electric. You do not have that range anxiety. You don't have a 200-mile electric range that you are kind of hawk-eyeing the whole time you're driving, because you know that you've got to pull over and charge on a long road trip that's going to take X amount of time versus just filling up the gas tank and continuing to drive. So the 4xe is a really awesome option. So guys, like I said, I just wanted to take you guys out in this new drivetrain and let us both experience it together. And yeah, it moves well, it drives well, it's a very nice place to be, and maybe something you want to look at. On the technician side of things, this should be the same drivetrain that we have had in the Wrangler 4xe. And to be honest with you guys, we really have not had any issues with those Wrangler 4xes as of right now. Maybe in 20, 30,000 miles, my story will have changed, but as of now, those 4xe Wranglers have been very bulletproof. Yes, we've done recalls or updates or whatever, but we have not had any massive issues. We haven't replaced any batteries, any transmissions, any engines in those 4xes. And again, this is the carryover drivetrain from the Wrangler. So I would feel relatively confident purchasing one of these if you are in the market for a plug-in hybrid and want something that gets a little better gas mileage. So guys, thanks for coming out on a video we haven't done in a really long time, and that's a new car test drive review, whatever the heck we're calling this. And guys, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.